Good people, what's going on? Welcome into Mose Knows. Of course, I am your host, Mose. We are back again with another Friday afternoon show. Things are happening in the NFL. Things are starting to happen with us hot and heavy. A lot of stuff going on around the league. We're going to jump right in and we are going to touch base on some of those things. We'll get to some news. We'll get to some fun stuff. We'll get to some stuff that's not so fun. But we're excited. It's an exciting time. As I mentioned on last episode, there are a few teams that have already opened up training camp. Most of those teams have opened up training camp to rookies. So the rookie class of 2023 has reported in the building, is getting started, getting some early work in before most of the veterans report next week, anywhere between the 23rd and the 26th. Most of the veterans will start reporting, so we'll get hot and heavy into all training camp stuff on next week's show. So this one we're going to have some fun rap about what's going on in the free agent landscape. Just some things that have happened, in recent days. We have Melvin Gordon, I think that was reported today, signing a one-year deal worth around $3 million with the Baltimore Ravens. If we're taking a look at that depth chart, we know they have J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. They have young backs in Justice Hill, and they just drafted Keaton Mitchell this year. So I think Melvin Gordon is just going to be a body for them, as we go through training camp, as we go through preseason, kind of take some of the workload off of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. With injuries that those two guys have suffered over the past few seasons, I think Baltimore wants to go into the season with a healthy running back group, particularly headed by that two-headed monster. So you bring in a veteran like Melvin Gordon, who can kind of teach the young guys a few things, understands how to work, how to be a professional in this league, understands the grind of the summer and training camp and preseason, and again, take a little bit of load off of the top guys. I think that is a positive situation for Baltimore, a positive situation for J.K. and Gus, and it gives Melvin Gordon a chance to, if he doesn't make the roster with Baltimore, gives him a chance to show off his skills and what he's got, and if he still has anything left for any of the other 31 teams in the NFL who may be looking to add a running back. Dane Smoot re-signs with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a rotational edge rusher, defensive end. He re-signed back with Jacksonville to stay a veteran present in that room. The Giants recently had two signings. They reunite Cole Beasley with his former offensive coordinator, now the head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll. And then they also bring in running back James Robinson. There'll be more on James in a minute. And then the biggest move in free agency so far would have to be DeAndre Hopkins signing a deal with the Tennessee Titans. How do I feel about this? I think this is good for the Titans. I don't know if this is a good situation for DeAndre. Now, obviously, can't speak for him and why he particularly made this decision. I'm sure playing with a guy like Derrick Henry was one of the first things that was on his mind. I'm sure going somewhere where he would be the number one guy, going somewhere where the team would need not only his production on the field, but his leadership in the locker room and in that wide receiver core. I'm sure that played a huge part in the decision. Again, going back to the AFC South, being able to play against the Houston Texans twice a year, was that a motivation for DeAndre? All of these things could be true. Here's where I kind of have an issue. We know the Tennessee Titans are a really, really good football team. We know they're a really good coached football team under head coach Mike Vrabel, and they always seem to be in the mix on playoff time. So could that be another motivation? Could DeAndre Hopkins feels like he could be the missing piece to get this team over the hump? Where I worry and where I struggle with this decision is in the quarterback room. 2 years in a row, this Tennessee Titans team has drafted a quarterback. First, Malik Willis in 2022, and then Will Levis this year. So they're clearly looking for a quarterback of the future. So does that mean Ryan Tannehill is here long term? Obviously not. He may even be gone prior to the start of this season, depending on how Malik Willis has improved, depending on if Will Levis is better than everybody thought and comes in, absolutely takes over the starting job and wins that particular battle. So there's that. Who is going to be the quarterback? Is it going to be a rookie Will Levis? Is it going to be a second-year player in Malik Willis? Or is it going to be middle of the road, middle of the pack, Ryan Tannehill? DeAndre did mention that he would retire the moment he is not a 1,000-yard wide receiver. Is it possible that he gets 1,000 yards with his team? Sure. But is it possible that he doesn't quite reach that mark? This is a team that we know runs through and is powered by Derrick Henry. There is a benefit here. There's a benefit of, well, if we bring in Andre Hopkins and we have a true number one wide receiver, we can kind of take some of that load off of Derrick Henry. Absolutely. He's getting a little up to age. I believe he's 29. He has a lot of tread on the tire. They've been feeding him the rock, and he's shouldered the load. So there's that cost benefit. But we know this team runs through Derrick Henry. So I don't know. We'd have to wait to see what this particular offense looked like. Could the presence of DeAndre Hopkins in this wide receiver room help guys like Treylon Burks, someone who's drafted to basically replace A.J. Brown, and be that number one all-around offensive weapon and threat? Yeah, absolutely. I think Hopkins' knowledge, I think just his presence on the field, the fact that teams are going to stop him and cover him first, absolutely. I think that helps Treylon Burks. But again, who's going to be at quarterback? How is this offense going to look, being that it's so run heavy with Derrick Henry? We're going to have to see how they, pan things out. Of course, he could have chose a much easier route. Could have went to Buffalo and teamed up with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. He could have went to Kansas City and got with Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce and just could have made a juggernaut of a team. It speaks to who he is as a player that he didn't take that easy route. I mean, he could have went to Baltimore, could have went to Pittsburgh. He could have went to Vegas and been opposite. What is his name? Devontae Adams. That would have been sick. Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins on the same team. That would have been a little crazy. He could have did any one of those things. He could have went to Jets and teamed up with Aaron Rodgers, even though they got a lot of pieces in the puzzle there. So we don't know what the motivation is fully. We're going to have to wait and see. And then we're also going to have to wait and see if this was the right decision for him in the long run, just as far as his production on the field, and then as far as who they are going to be as a unit. So we have to wait and see that. We got my man Bryant Culp in the building. He says, "What's up, Mose? What's going on, Bryant? Glad you could tune in today. I appreciate you, man." So those are some of the free agent signings. Again, DeAndre Hopkins is the big one to the Tennessee Titans. Made a lot of sense in some ways, but in others it didn't. Brian says, I'm at work. Appreciate you, man. I hope you don't get in trouble. Hope you're in a situation where you can watch. But, if I can, make your work day go a little bit smoother, give you some content, give you some things to focus on, some things to think about. That's great. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, moving on to another, kind of hot topic in the NFL right now. Washington Commanders sale has been finalized. Daniel Snyder is no longer an owner in the NFL. A lot of unfortunate situations surrounding his ownership and his tenure with the team. So that sale for $6 billion plus has been finalized. And in his first act as new minority owner, Magic Johnson. Yes, the iconic, legendary Magic Johnson is now part owner. And the Washington Commanders says the team will consider a name change at the end of the 2023 season. So obviously this team was the Redskins for a long time. There are some negative connotations surrounding that name. So they changed to the Commanders. But now a new ownership group is coming in and saying, we may change that. We're the owners now. We run the ship now. And I don't know how much we like the name Commanders. I don't know how much we like Commanders with our current merchandising strategy. Is our merch cool to sell to our fans? I wish I had my homie, my good friend and fellow content creator, Rio Robinson. Shout out to him. We got to get him on at some point to talk about this transition with the Washington Commanders, sale going final, and some of the changes that be coming down the pike with the new ownership. I know he has some good insight, some good intel for us. So we got to get him on here soon. So I would love to hear his thoughts on it. But yeah, I see some major changes coming for this team. Obviously, they drafted Sam Howell last year. It looks like they're moving forward with him. My apologies if you hear crying baby in the background. That's my 2-year-old downstairs with her siblings. They drafted Sam Howell later rounds. Looks like moving forward, he's going to be the quarterback at least for this year. But new ownership in the building. Will there be an overhaul? Will there be a change at the head coach position? Will there be a change at the GM position? How does this roster start to shape out with a changing of the guard? All of that is possible. All of that is in play. You have new ownership. So if they're talking about changing the name, which was recently changed, I believe last year or the year before that, the Commanders' name has not been around for long. So when you talk about making a change like that was so recent, I can see everything changing. The name change, the jerseys change, merchandise changes. But with all of that, if we have a new name and new jerseys and new merchandise, how do we drive our fans' engagement? How do we get them excited about this new direction under new ownership? It's going to be a changing of the guard. So coaching staff, players, front office staff, a lot of changes could be coming down the pipe, this new ownership. If it's one thing that I know, Magic Johnson understands the business aspect. It seems all of the business ventures that he's put his hand in have thrived. This may take a little bit of time. It may not be as easy or as quick as some of his other successful business ventures. But I think him and the other ownership team, I think they are ready to make a change, make it different, and let the other 31 NFL owners understand and know that they belong here, that they belong in NFL ownership. So that's going to be exciting to see, if you ask me. Brian says, I'm hands-free Bluetooth listening to YouTube like radio. I can dig it. He says you should go live more often. I'm trying to. I really am trying to. Obviously, with My current work schedule with the family, the wife and the kids. I kind of got to be in multiple places sometimes. So I might always have the chance to stream. Once football season comes, Brian, I definitely will uh, be going live a little bit more often. I'll have shows all throughout the week. And as we get closer to that time, I'll outline what my schedule will be, so that you guys are aware of that. He said, I have kids. I scream. Kids, better to hear noise than silence. You are absolutely right. Once you start hearing that noise, like it can't go away. Says, what's up, Mose, Nose, and everyone. Rafi 5629ers, appreciate you. He says, it me or does it sound choppy? Well, I can hear anything on my end. I'll definitely take a look at the playback. Definitely looking to make some improvements as far as microphone and sound quality soon. So thank you for pointing that out. If you're hearing that, and I'll double check and take a look at that. Let me see if I could change something in audio settings, and maybe that'll. Let's see. Let's try that. All right, I made a few adjustments, some changes. It Brian says, yeah, it's a little choppy. Internet is good. Made a few changes on the audio. Let me know if you guys still hear a choppiness with the audio. He says, good to go, better, good to go. Okay. Yeah, I think when we had to change some settings for nitty gritty Niners for everybody's audio. But I think individually it kind of messes some up. So when we're on as a group, we have to have a certain set of settings, and then when we're on individually, we'll go back to another set of settings. So you guys are giving me the thumbs up. Everything is good. See, this is why I appreciate the family. They hear a little choppiness. They hear a little something's not right with the audio. We make some changes, and now we're good to go. All right, moving on. Let's get to something a little bit fun. Um, a lot of teams are making some change. We just talked about some of the changes that the Washington Commanders will be making under new ownership. And a lot of teams are doing some really, really cool things as it pertains to their jerseys. Um, Teams are always looking for different ways to uh, either wear a throwback jersey or wear an alternate jersey. The NFL was doing the color rush a few years back. I think they went away from that. Some teams still have versions of their color rush uniforms that they still wear. The Rams with the all yellow, the Titans, we talked about them with DeAndre Hopkins with the all baby blues. Um, so it's really cool to see some of the teams. Now, for anybody who watches me that are 49ers fans, probably not going to like this first one. It's the Seattle Seahawks. They're going with the throwback uniforms. And I'm sorry. I these are kind of tough. These are kind of tough. With the silver helmets, the blue face mask, you see DK Metcalf with the blacked out visor. Now they won't be wearing these on the field, but they got the matching Air Maxes with the same colorway. These are tough. These are tough. As a 49ers fan, I think I can say that and not be a hater. These are tough. I really, really like these. Next on the list, I'm really excited about these. The Indianapolis Colts with these all blue uniforms and switching to a black helmet. This is tough. This is tough. Now, I don't know if it came out too late. If it's in Madden, I might have to do a franchise mode either with the Colts, with their current roster, or do like a fantasy drafted one where I get the Colts in their uniforms, but I get to pick, my team through via fantasy draft. These are tough. The all blues, the jersey number design is a little bit different with the black outline. You get the Colts C on the chest, and then they have the new black helmets with the Colts emblem on the side. This is tough. I like these a lot. I'm going to be excited to see these in action. Again, I hope they're updated in Madden. Raphael says the Seahawks limit their comments on IG with their throwback jerseys. Yeah, I don't feel like I feel like there are more fans of football in the NFL that are, I think there are more fans outside of the fan base that are excited about the Seahawks jerseys than the Seahawks fans themselves. I think for Seahawks fans, that takes them back to a time where they weren't that good. So for us who don't care about when they were good or bad, these just look like really, really cool jerseys. But for them, it's kind of brings up a traumatic past, right? So those are good. The Colts are tough, and the Browns all white with the white helmet. I like changing the helmet as well, configuring the helmet to kind of match the flow of the jersey combination you got going on. The Bengals did it last year with the white helmets and the black stripes. And I think their division rival now is following suit with the all white uniforms. You got the white pants, you got the white jerseys, and now you add the white helmet for the Browns. David Njoku makes this look absolutely menacing with the darked out visor, but you actually see it's tinted to where it has that orange glow. Now, unfortunately, come time for games, he likely won't be able to wear that visor unless it gets specially approved by the NFL. The NFL is sticklers for no reason about certain things. But this Browns all white with the white helmet, again, that is a tough, tough, tough combination. So I'm excited to see these on the field. I'd be interested to know from you guys in the comments, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching the playback. What are some of your favorite jerseys in the NFL, whether it be a throwback jersey, an alternate jersey, whether it's from your team or another team around the league? What are some of your favorite jerseys in the NFL? If I had to give some of mine, um, I gotta look. I gotta remember from when I played Madden. Um, so Tampa Bay, like their helmets are like that gray. I think it's called pewter. But I know in the game they have like the pewter jerseys, so you can do the pewter jersey with the black pants. That combination is ill. I love that one. I'm a fan of the Chargers jerseys, but when the Chargers go navy on navy, um, those are tough. Let's see who has good throwback jerseys. The Cowboys throwback that they wear, the navy one, that's iconic at this point. Um, who else? I like the throwback Denver ones, the orange ones, just to name a few. Now, of course, all the Niner throwbacks, obviously. Um, so yeah, we got some different jerseys happening this year. Some dope colorways, some different ways for players to kind of express their fashion and their style on the field. So that should be really, really good to see this year. We got Bebop Jones in the building. He said Debo is going in this year. I'm hyped. He also says Commanders about to change their whole team name again. Yes. Yes. Raphael says Chargers powder blue is nice as well. Yeah, the powder blues are tough. Titans throwback. Yeah, those are tough. Yeah, I love those. I love those. But yeah, Bebop, that's what happens with new ownership. Whenever you take ownership of something, you're in charge. You get to make those decisions. And I think this ownership group is trying to find a way to take this franchise not only to a winning level, but a level that is profitable. They got to find a way to make that $6.05 billion back. So yeah, they might be making some changes to the name and making some changes to merchandise and things of that nature. They got to find a way to recoup that money. That I'm sure all of that is in the works. I'm sure. I hope. Yeah, Raphael says, "Hope the Commanders get a new stadium." Yes, I'm sure all of that is in the works, and that'll be rolled out in a strategic plan by the new ownership. All right, let's go to a topic that is a little bit less fun, and we're going to talk about rookie wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison. Um, Jordan Addison was driving 140 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a police cruiser traveling in the opposite direction. Addison zoomed past him. He obviously then made the U-turn, tried to catch up with Addison, and eventually pulled him over and wrote him a citation for speeding. 3 o'clock in the morning. Don't know where he was coming from or where he was going to, but 140 miles in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Now, I'm not here to provide condemnation to the young man. I think Jordan Addison is 22, 23 years old, um, in the spotlight for since he was a little kid, good high school player, went to USC, was a superstar on that campus. And now he is an NFL wide receiver, um, you know, driving around in a Lamborghini Urus. That's a very, very fast car. And I remember when I was young and dumb, 17, 18, 19, I wasn't behind the wheel of a Lamborghini Urus, but the cars that I did have, some of them were very, very fast. And I've raced in the streets of Philly before and raced on highways in New Jersey, raced friends, raced other drivers who I didn't know. I've, put the pedal to the floor and saw how fast I can get the car up to. I get it. I understand it. However, in the position that you are in as an NFL player, with what you have on the line, um, first let's talk about your life, your physical life. At that speed, anything could go wrong. Um, 3 o'clock in the morning, um, you wouldn't think that there would be people out, but what if somebody didn't see or hear you coming and walked out into the road and you had to swerve at the last minute, or you didn't swerve and you hit that person? What if an animal, deer, bear, squirrel, dog, cat, whatever, darts out in front of your path as you're going that fast? At those speeds, anything could happen. So you're talking about your physical well-being. But then your opportunity to play this game that you love at the highest level and to do some really, really special things, you put that in jeopardy. Um, and you could say, yeah, in hindsight, you think about those things. But with recent occurrences in the NFL, we're talking about what happened with Jalen Carter that almost hurt his draft stock. Being in a race where traveling at those speeds unfortunately ended with someone losing their life. It wasn't in the car that he was in, but because both cars were racing, that was something that he was questioned about. Um, Before that, there's the issue with Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs was doing 156 miles an hour. And unfortunately, hit another car, causing the accident. And the young lady and her dog, who was in the vehicle with her, unfortunately did not survive that incident. And now Henry Ruggs is out of the NFL and facing prison time for this reckless driving incident. So there are recent occurrences with your peers in a similar situation that just should be in the forefront of your mind, that traveling this fast no matter what, is not a good idea. It's not. If this is something that you love, if fast cars are your passion and you love to drive fast, then find somewhere where you're currently staying. Obviously, you're in Minnesota. I'm sure there's somewhere you can find. There's got to be a drag strip or a racetrack somewhere in every state. Maybe that's a reach, but find somewhere where you can do that in a controlled setting. If that's a hobby, if that's a passion, find somewhere where you can do that in a controlled setting where traveling that fast at those speeds is sanctioned. It's okay for you to do. But going 140 and a 55, come on, young fella. I don't think this is the way Jordan wanted to start his NFL career. And again, I'm not here to speak negatively on a young man or condemn his mistakes. We all make mistakes. Um, Listen, I'm sure you put me behind a Lamborghini Urus right now. I may not do 140, but I'm gonna be in the triple digits depending on where I am. But you gotta understand and know that you are going to be scrutinized much more heavily than the standard person. Is that fair? Maybe not. But again, with the recent occurrences of other young NFL players, Jalen Carter, Henry Ruggs, doing something like this is going to be severely frowned upon. So I'm hoping that, he learned his lesson from that. Thankfully he wasn't hurt. Thankfully, no one else was hurt. Um, of the stories I read, I don't believe that there was any drug or alcohol involved. I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit more digging, but from some of the preliminary articles that I've read, this doesn't seem to be like a DUI situation or any type of inebriation or intoxication. So he's just a young kid trying to get home from hanging out with his friends, going out to the club in a Lamborghini, going 140. So, you know, um, something that, again, like I said, I hope he learns from. I hope that he's able to kind of get back on the right foot, lock in for training camp, lock in the preseason, and kind of just put football at the forefront and kind of get this behind him. Marty Mar 49 Empire, say, yo, what's good, Mose? What's going on, brother? Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you. Raphael says, at that speed, you cannot react properly. Absolutely. And any type of reaction that you make going that fast, any slight turn to the left or right at that speed, you're likely to spin out, tail spin. You're likely to flip the car over. There's so many things that could happen at that speed. Once you're going that fast, you no longer have control of the car, except for holding the steering wheel and keeping it as straight as possible. But anything that deviates you from that straight line, it doesn't end well. It's usually catastrophic. So again, I am thankful that that wasn't the case with Jordan Addison. That we're not reading that he potentially hurt himself or his injuries were fatal and he's no longer with us, or that no one else was injured. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the opportunity for him to have this lesson, to learn this lesson, and to be able to kind of get back on the right foot. All right, last subject of the day, and probably our most extensive subject. You see the title of this episode is Show Me the Money. And what we want to touch on here is, what is the value of a running back? We have three running backs right now who are in contract situations. And there are three unique situations, and we're going to touch on each situation and why they're unique, um, but why it's so difficult for these teams to provide the value that these players are looking for at their position. Um, it's funny. As I was doing my research and figuring out, how I was going to approach this topic, there was a podcast where one of the members of the podcast, what's going on, Dion? Good brother. I know it's hot. My son, my son sent my wife a couple days ago. My son sent my wife a picture of the temperature in Phoenix, Arizona. He was like, it was 118. And he was like, absolutely not. And he was like, I don't know how they doing it out there. So, bro, I hope you and the family and everybody you love and care about and all of everybody in Arizona, I hope you guys are staying cool. I know the heat waves throughout the country have been absolutely crazy this year. So appreciate you for stopping in, taking some time. Hope you staying cool. He says hot is an understatement. We burn it up out here. Try to stay cool, bro. Bebop Jones says punters are making more money. So yeah, let's talk about it. I was trying to figure out how I was going to approach this topic. And what is the reason why the running back position is not as highly valued as maybe some other positions? Obviously, there are the standard topics. There are a lot of running backs to go around. Running backs have a short shelf life. Most running backs have a 2 to 4 or 5 year span where they're great. And then after that, they catch flat tires and they're not quite the same. Injury history, ankle injuries, ACL injuries, hip, back injuries. They take a beating. Not only do they have to block on passing downs, but they have to run in between the tackles. They have to get tackled by 300-pound defensive linemen, 240, 250-pound linebackers, 220, 230-pound safeties. Like they have to take a beating. And because they take so much punishment, both running the ball and getting hit, their value is obviously decreased. One podcast that I heard and I listened to, one of the members of that podcast actually blamed Mike and Kyle Shanahan and said that the Shanahan system, for better or for worse, has proven that you can take quote unquote lesser quality running backs and be successful. So because of that, you don't need a superstar running back on your team. You don't need the running back who's making 15, 16 million dollars in order to be successful. If you have a committee of guys, if you have a bunch of guys who can do a bunch of different things, you can kind of make something work. And is that true? In some instances, yes. My only pushback is not every system is the Shanahan system. And I would gather to say, as much as the Shanahan system is so good with any type of running back, the better running backs do more special things than the average running back. Prime example, the 49ers had a myriad of different running backs, from the Elijah Mitchells to the Jeff Wilson Jr.'s to the Raheem Mosterts. Had it not been for Kyle Shanahan and his system, you probably wouldn't know who those guys were. Before the 49ers, Raheem Mostert was on 8 or 9 different teams just trying to make it as a special teamer. And then in the Kyle Shanahan system, you saw what he was able to do as a runner. Uh, Mike Shanahan, sure, he was able to make some really, really good running backs. But Terrell Davis was a special back. And even if you consider him a system back, he was a special back in a special system. And the marriage of him in that system, even though he had a short career span, turned him into a Hall of Famer for what he was able to do in that span. And then, the argument for, running back value, even Terrell Davis, he maximized his window. But outside of that window, after those 2 or 3 really, really good years, it was all downhill from there. So it takes a special running back to have longevity in this league and to be dominant over a long period of time. Are there a lot of running backs in history that were dominant over 8, 9, 10-year spans? Maybe you can count on 2 hands that number. So there is an impasse. There is a crossroad. But the value that a productive running back can bring to your organization is unmatched. And a lot of times, teams that don't have a solid running back situation, you find that they're able to make up for it in other ways. But without the ability to run the ball, you run into some issues. There are a few teams that you can say, even recently, that didn't have the best running back situation. You talk about Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the year that they won the Super Bowl. Cool. 1, you have Tom Brady. 2, you had a stifling defense. So you can kind of make up for the lack of ability of being able to run the ball. But even Leonard Fournette was able to do a decent enough job to where the run was respected. You talk about the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Isaiah Pacheco and even the addition of Jerick McKinnon helped propel that offense when we thought that offense would take a step back after losing Tyreek Hill. There was a hodgepodge of wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster trying to figure out, is he still a star? Can he elevate and ascend to higher levels? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's trying to figure out, can I be a number 1 or even a solid number 2, leaving Green Bay? Rookie Sky Moore, a bunch of different other guys. So the wide receiver position was kind of in flux. But it was the steady play of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the ascension of Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon that kind of helped propel that offense forward. We look at the Colts. Injuries, minor nagging injuries, but injuries to Jonathan Taylor kind of derailed that season for that team. You look at the Tennessee Titans, and folks around the league are worried that Tennessee didn't pull the trigger fast enough to move on from Derrick Henry in his contract because they're waiting for his decline. Same thing could be said in Cleveland. Nick Chubb has been a solid and consistent running back for as long as he's been in the league. They're waiting for his decline. So, it's kind of difficult to know the history of the position, know the history that injuries play to these particular players, but also knowing the star power of having a really, really good running back and what that can do for your team. So there's a cost-benefit analysis, and the cost-benefit analysis is being done by every NFL team. But let's take a listen to what Saquon Barkley had to say about his particular situation.
I could say fuck you to the Giants. I could say fuck you to my teammates and be like, you want me to show you my worth? You want to show you how valuable I am to the team? I won't show up. I won't play it down. And that's a play I can use. Anybody knows me knows that's not something I want to do. But like it's something that crossed my mind. It's like I never thought I would ever do that, but like now I'm in a point where it's like, Jesus, like I might have to take it to this level. And like, am I willing? Am I prepared to take it to the level? I don't know. That's something I got to sit down and like I got to talk to my family. I got to sit down and talk to my team. Got to really strategize about this. Can't just like go off of emotions because like I sit here and say like, oh, be mature.
That's what he said about the situation. A lot of people look at that as like, okay, he's trying to play, good guy role in the situation, that he wants to work with the team. He wants to work with the organization, but he doesn't feel like they want to work with him. A lot of people could say that, he's trying to force their hand by saying, now this has become a legitimate decision that I have to think about. Am I going to sit out an entire season until we can figure out something on the contract end? Or you decide to deal me to another team that is willing to, work that out. Josh Jacobs, another running back. Let's actually take a look. Let me share my screen because I do have some things that I want to look at from the contract perspective. We're going to share our screen. We want this window here. All right, put me in the corner. Here we go. So let's go to the running back chart. So I had the quarterback one up so that you can see. And yes, we understand that quarterback is the most valuable position in the NFL. But look at the averages here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 8 running backs are averaging double digits a year. And the 3, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon Barkley. Jacobs and Barkley, you see, they don't have any guarantees because they didn't sign the franchise tag. They're not going to sign the franchise tag. Tony Pollard has signed the franchise tag, and we'll dive into that in a second because, like I said, these are 3 different situations, 3 unique situations. But that would be the amount of the franchise tag. But that's still only 8 players who are averaging double digits a year. We have Christian McCaffrey averaging 16, Alvin Kamara averaging 15, and then Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb both averaging 12. Aaron Jones at 11.5. And then if you look at the ages, 29, 28, 29, 28, 27. All of these guys are top running backs in the league, very, very valuable to their teams and what they bring. But so are Pollard, Jacobs, and Barkley. Now, just for comparison, this is the quarterback market. Even Jordan Love is averaging 13.5. Bryce Young just got drafted and he's averaging 9.4. We know that the top quarterbacks in the league, Lamar reset the market at 52 a year. Before that, Jalen Hurts reset it at 51 a year. We remember when Russell set it at 49. We remember when Patrick Mahomes got his contract, and then Deshaun got his after that, and so did Kyler, so on and so forth. And normally with this particular position group, the quarterbacks, the next contract always resets the market. So there are 3 guys on this list who are coming up in the near future. That's Joe Burrow. He's going to reset the market and probably get somewhere around 53 to 54 million a year. Justin Herbert, may also reset the market. And then right after them, Trevor Lawrence, if he continues on his trajectory. Those three guys are definitely in the realm of resetting the quarterback market. But if we go back to the running back tab, both Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley said it's not important for them to reset the running back market. Now, how true is that? Do I think they want that? Sure. Would Saquon and Jacobs love to be compensated at $17 million a year or average $18 million a year or even average $20 million a year? I think so. I think they would love that. But even if they don't reset it, I think they will be good at anywhere between, let's say, 14 and 18 million a year. That's a nice range. I got to do a little bit more research. I haven't heard what the average per year they were being offered by their teams. But if both Jacobs and Barkley are willing to sit out and not report to camp, it obviously must not be in a realm of even where the top 3 or 4 guys are, which I feel like them being younger is a disservice to them. If we just take a look at, let me remove that from if we just take a look at the situations, because like I said, they're unique situations. So in the situation of Tony Pollard was a 4th round draft pick in 2019. He played 15 in the order from 19 to 22. He's played in 15 games, 16 games, 15 games, 16 games. Has a total of 510 carries over those 4 years, 2,616 yards, and 17 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns his rookie year, 4 his sophomore, 2 his third year, and then 9 touchdowns last year. I think it's beneficial for Tony Pollard in this situation to accept the franchise tag at the average 10 million number because he still has to prove that he can be the number 1 back on this team. Obviously, he was behind Zeke. Zeke was getting the majority of the carries until he started on his decline. And now Tony Pollard has to prove that he can come in, take over the starting job as the running back for the Dallas Cowboys, and produce at a high level. Knowing the team that he plays for, knowing the ownership, I believe if he does that, I'm sure he'll be compensated accordingly. There's always going to be this back and forth of what the running back value is and where the market is. But I think if he has a good 2023 and they go back to the negotiating table, I think he can get anywhere between 12 and 15 million a year. And I think that's acceptable for Tony Pollard. Saquon Barkley, drafted 1st round, number 2 pick overall in 2018. So he played in 16 games, 13 games, 2 games in 2020 before he tore his ACL, 13 games after that, the season that he returned, and then 16 games last year. No season where he's had over 300 carries, 954 total for his career so far, 4,249 rushing yards and 29 touchdowns. Also 247 receptions for 1,820 yards and 8 touchdowns. So we have total yards from scrimmage for Saquon at a touch over 6,000 and then 37 total touchdowns. So obviously they picked up his 5th-year option. Even after a down year in 2021 after returning from the torn ACL. But then he returned to form with 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns last year, helping propel this newly revamped Giants team coached by Brian Daboll into the playoffs. Okay? So what he does as a back out of the backfield, but also as a receiver, is a big benefit to this team. And then we take a look at Josh Jacobs. respectfully, in 2019, drafted first round, pick 24, 13 games, 15 games, 15 games, and 17 games last year. They did not choose to pick up his fifth-year option, and still, through his first 4 seasons, has a total of 1,072 carries for 4,740 yards and 40 touchdowns. He had 7 touchdowns as a rookie, 12 as a sophomore, 9 in his third year, and 12 touchdowns last year. He has 160 catches for 1,152 yards. He has no receiving touchdowns. So for Josh Jacobs, someone that was a first-round pick who had his fifth-year option declined, having a season where he had 340 touches, 1,653 yards, averaging 4.9 a carry and 12 touchdowns, to me, that was his prove-it year. You did pick up his fifth-year option. You decided to say, hey, look, this is what we got. We're not picking up your fifth-year option. Show us that you want to be here. Now, granted, there has been some turmoil within that organization. John Gruden was out, I believe, in the middle of 2021. And then new head coach, Josh McDaniels, comes in. New general manager, Mike Mayock, is out. So this is probably a part of changing of the guard. They didn't draft Josh Jacobs. While he was good for them last year, maybe he's not the type of back that Josh McDaniels is looking for. Maybe he wants someone that's more versatile as far as a receiving threat, as Josh Jacobs doesn't do that very well. But 1,600 yards on the ground, averaging 4.9 a carry. That was his prove-it year to me. So again, 3 completely different situations. A running back who only had his first 4 years on a rookie deal and is signing the franchise tag as a fifth-year option to prove that he can be the bell cow for the Cowboys. Then we have Saquon, who, yes, suffered an ACL injury, but 2 years removed from that, got back to being a 1,000-yard rusher, averaging 4.4 carry and had 10 touchdowns, and still did damage as a receiving threat. And then we have Josh Jacobs, a first-rounder, whose fifth-year option was declined, however, proved that if you get the ball in his hands, he is a dynamic weapon, getting you 1,600 yards on the ground, averaging 4.9 a carry. So for all of this talk about the position is devalued, that may be so. But the position can only be devalued if you have a system in place that still allows you to be successful in that aspect of a football game. And we can take a look at the Giants, right? Because we talked about, the free agent signing earlier. I think they are completely in this stalemate with Saquon Barkley. Now, obviously, I believe they have to bring in a running back for camp purposes. They were supposed to have Saquon. If Saquon's not going to be there, you got to bring in another back just to make sure that, no one is being overworked or overused. But I think this is also signed to Saquon that says, if you want to play the hard way, we can play that way as well. So they have Matt Breida, Eric Gray, Gary Brightwell, Jashawn Corbin, and then they just added James Robinson. Does that committee of backs do the same thing as far as offensive production and the threat to the defense as a Saquon Barkley? No. If I'm one of the teams in this division, or if I know I have the Giants on my schedule, I know now all I have to do is stop Daniel Jones. And I don't have to worry about Saquon Barkley if he's going to sit out the season. I'm not worried about Matt Breida. I'm not worried about Gary Brightwell. I'm not worried about Eric Gray or James Robinson. That committee of running backs does not scare me or threaten me into respecting that rushing offense. Same thing with the Raiders. So they have Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden, Britton Brown, Sincere McCormick, Austin Walter. So they have a few guys on the list, a couple of rookies. Amir Abdullah, veteran in his 8th season. Zamir White coming in from Georgia. Again, I think Zamir has some good qualities, and I think he could be a good back. But am I worried about him giving me 1,600 yards and being able to break off a long run at any point in this game? Am I worried about his vision? Am I worried about his ability to make someone miss? Not as much as I am Josh Jacobs. Again, the thought is maybe he doesn't fit what Josh McDaniels wants to do in this offense. But I'm sure there's a team out there that says, yeah, we'd love to have a guy like Josh Jacobs in our backfield. And to me, I understand the salary cap and what folks need to do to make sure that they can fit everything under the cap that, there's always cap casualties, but these general managers, this front office staff, they always get so creative with the numbers, right? 12 million, 13 million, 15 million. To me, that's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, especially if I'm not one of the teams. I mean, if you look at the Giants, okay, go back to the quarterback. Daniel Jones got a new contract. He didn't reset the market, but he's making $40 million a year. But if you look at the 52 that they gave Lamar, you can't give Saquon 12. You can't give him 13 or 14, especially if he's saying that resetting the market is not the end all be all. That's not his goal. That's not what he's trying to do. He just wants to get compensated fairly. The Raiders, they got Jimmy Garoppolo. He's only making 24. So again, you don't have 14 million for Josh Jacobs, a running back who Jimmy is going to need. Again, the only thing that I see with the Raiders situation is that Josh is a great running back, but he doesn't fit what Josh McDaniels wants to do. And of course, you can have the running back by committee, and maybe Josh Jacobs isn't your pass catching back. Maybe you have someone else who can do that. You do become a little bit predictable when Josh Jacobs is not on the field and that other running back is in. A lot of times they're going to key in on him being a receiver out of the backfield, but I'm sure Josh McDaniels is clever enough to come up with offensive schemes that mitigate or disguise what they're trying to do. And then if we just change positions, let me just change positions real quick because I want to see. Oh, yeah. Wide receivers, 30, Tyreek Hill, 28, Devontae Adams, 26, Cooper Kupp, 25, A.J. Brown, 24 for Diggs, Metcalf, 23, 8 for Samuel, 23, 2 for Terry McLaurin, 20 for DJ Moore, 20 for Keenan Allen, 20 for Mike Williams, 20 for Cooper, 20 for Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, 18. There's like 30 guys here that are averaging 10 million or more. Michael Thomas is still getting 10 million a year, averaging 10 million a year from the Saints. Tim Patrick from the Broncos is averaging 10 million. Jacoby Myers is getting 11 million from the Raiders. Corey Davis is getting 12.5 from the Jets. OBJ coming off injury is still getting 15 million from the Ravens. Like, come on, guys. Come on, guys. The only other position that I would say should command resetting the market outside of quarterback is edge rusher. So more than likely, if we change that position, if we go to edge rusher, Myles Garrett reset the market, then Joey Bosa, then TJ Watt. More than likely, Nick Bosa's contract is going to reset that market. There's about 20 guys here in the edge rusher group that's averaging more than 10 million a year. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 7. Von Miller and up. We got 7 guys that are averaging 20 or more a year. So there are positions that are averaging this type of money. Left tackle, another important position. You got quarterback, you got your left tackle, you got your edge rusher. I think that the tight end group is suffering some of the same issues that the running back group is suffering from. But there are less tight ends to go around than there are running backs. You can find a running back anywhere. But can you find a running back? Can you find a Derrick Henry anywhere? Can you find a Nick Chubb? Can you find a Saquon Barkley? Can you find a Josh Jacobs? Can you find a Jonathan Taylor? Can you find a Christian McCaffrey anywhere? To me, the answer is no. To me, I'm always going to be on the player side. In particularly these two players, and Saquon and Josh Jacobs. I feel like they need to be compensated, um, for what they've done, and what they're still able to do. And I think if you need to build in, contract voids, contract outs, have accelerators, whatever you need to do, you need to figure out how to make it work. But I think these guys definitely need to get paid. They need to be compensated for the type of running back that they're capable of being, because they've proven it. They've proven it. Let's get to some of these comments before we get on out of here. Deion says, don't mention that name, F. McKinnon. I'm just saying, ungrateful. Yeah, he is. And again, people will use that. The 49ers go out, new regime with Kyle Shanahan. They see a running back in Jerick McKinnon. He fits everything that we want to do. He's available. Sign him to a good contract. And unfortunately, he tore his ACL that first training camp, and it kind of took him a while to kind of get back into the swing of things. He kind of had some setbacks, but now he's fully healthy, and you can see he's kind of getting back to form. So it took him a little bit, but there's always that the two sides of the coin. But I still think that these guys, in particularly Jacobs and Barkley, they need to get their coin. Brian Cole, appreciate. He says, everyone, hey, I'm just here listening. Go Niners, hit that like button. Appreciate you, brother. He says Arby's. Deion says Arby's being done greasy by the NFL. The simple answer is they are expendable. True. They're expendable if you're Kyle Shanahan. But then even him, if Debo isn't healthy and he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey, is the running back then expendable? Are they serviceable? I would change expendable to serviceable. Certain guys can be serviceable, and certain guys in certain systems are more serviceable than others. But even if we're talking about the Giants and Saquon Barkley, one of the big issues with Brian Daboll in Buffalo was that he couldn't get a running game going if it wasn't through Josh Allen. Couldn't figure it out. Couldn't get a running back game, a running game going, whether it was with one back or a running back by committee. And a lot of people question his effectiveness to be a good coach in the NFL because, sure, your offense is good, but once teams realize that you can't run the football, we know how to stop you. We know how to game plan against you. And then he comes to the Giants and he gets a running back like Saquon Barkley who can do so much. And his offense takes off. And now he's getting full credit for developing Daniel Jones and allowing him to continue to work and to mature into the quarterback that people thought he was going to be, being drafted in the first round, because of what Daboll is able to do with the running game with a dynamic weapon like Saquon Barkley. So I feel like every situation is different. You have to have the offensive scheme and you have to have the players for the running back committee to be serviceable. But is every running back in the NFL expendable? I don't know. I wouldn't agree with that. He said you can find a running back anywhere that will play through a contract, get tagged twice, and be thrown out like yesterday's trash. And that's what I think the problem is. I think the running back position is so oversaturated with players. There's a lot of positions that size matters. You don't see many 5'10", 5'11" offensive linemen. You don't see many 5'10", 5'11" defensive linemen. You don't see a lot of 5'10". There are some short guys. There are the Kyler Murrays and the Russell Wilsons and the Tua Tagovailoas, but you don't see many 5'10", 5'11" quarterbacks. But you do see those at the skill positions. You see a lot of 5'10", 5'11", 5'9" running backs, wide receivers, corners. But that market in that position in running back is so saturated, and guys who have been playing this game since they were 4 years old want to make it to the stage that, sure, they'll take less money. They'll take a franchise tag if it means securing a roster spot and being able to play. But if we want to talk about if the position is devalued, it's likely because running backs are not fighting for what they deserve. And now a Josh Jacobs and a Saquon Barkley actively voicing their displeasure with this process seems far-fetched because they should know that the position is devalued. But I think that's the problem. You can find a running back anywhere that'll come off the street, that'll carry the rock, that'll do what needs to be done, that won't argue, won't say nothing, will take pennies on the dollar of what he's supposed to get, will take the franchise tag, and like when he's done or he's over the hill or he's injured too much and he can't produce, is okay with getting it thrown away because he got his 3 to 5 year window in where he collected his bag, and that was enough for him to do what he needed to do for the rest of his life. So that's more of the reason why I applaud Saquon and Josh Jacobs for fighting for what they deserve, because in order for the stigma to change around the value of the position, at some point you got to fight for yourself. It's just like I would tell any one of you watching working at a job. If you're working at a job and you're busting your behind and you're, meeting your production and you're going above and beyond and you're doing everything to make the company successful, fight for what you deserve. If you know that, if you've done your research and you know that the average for someone in your position is this and you're making below that, fight for what you deserve. And if that company is not willing to give you the money that you deserve, then go look for a company that will pay you what you deserve, that will value you at what you deserve. Because the companies, they're going to find somebody else to fill that position. So you got to fight for what you deserve. Bebop says, I bet you Seahawks feel different about this after not handing it to beast mode. See what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? You got a guy called beast mode. You're on the 1 yard line. Give him the ball. Bebop, you're bringing up traumatic thoughts. 49ers, Super Bowl, Baltimore Ravens. Why are we throwing it 3 times inside the 5? Why are we throwing a fade to Michael Crabtree in the back of the end zone? Frank Gore got us inside the 5. That offensive line was Joe Staley, Jonathan Goodwin, Mike Iupati, Anthony Davis, and Boone. They was looking to knock somebody's head off. Give Frank the ball, let him run behind that offensive line and punch it down Ray Lewis and Ed Reed's throat and punch that ball in the end zone. Frank got you all the way down there on that last drive. Give Frank the football. Let him punch it in. You done climbed all the way back, snatched the will out of your opponent, and snatched that Lombardi trophy from the Baltimore Ravens by giving the ball to Frank Gore and letting him run it in the end zone. You on the 1 yard line, Seattle. Give the ball to Marshawn. Come on, Bebop. Why you do that? You trying to end the show. The Shanahan system makes them expendable to an extent, but teams just don't call them running back like they used to. They don't. Bebop said Saquon played high school right near me in PA. Yeah, and he was a legend. Bryce Young just got a fully guaranteed 4-year deal worth for Q. No, he says there you go. 41.222 million. Yeah. I was just looking that up under the quarterbacks. Bryce Young, who hasn't taken a snap in the league yet, is averaging $9.5 million a year on his contract. That would put him above James Conner. That would put Bryce Young right under Barkley and Jacobs if they were to sign the franchise tag, because they're at 10.1. He's at 9.5. He's making Bryce Young, who hasn't taken a snap in this league, is averaging $2.5 more million a year than James Conner. And James Conner a year or two ago had what, 16 touchdowns or something crazy? Listen, Bebop says NYC. I know they got money. They got money. They got money. Brian says, I don't understand why the salary cap goes up or down. Good and bad players get paid. Do you want players playing to win or playing for stats? Obviously, you want players playing to win. But here's the thing. When it comes to these contract negotiations, the organizations make it about stats. When it comes to the conditional money, right? When it comes to the incentives are stat based. And how many stories have we heard of players who at the end of the season, week 16, week 17, week 18, are close to getting a bonus from reaching a stat incentive, and they miraculously get sat down in the middle of the second quarter, or they play the first half and don't see any action in the second half. Or if they're a wide receiver, no passes get thrown to them. They get no targets. They needed to get 3 catches and 25 yards to get their incentive bonus, and the play calling just so happened not to go that player's way. So I get where you're coming from, Bryant, but it's hard to say we want players to play to win. But then in some of these contract negotiations, the money that they get guaranteed, and anything that's incentive based is based on their production and stats. The organizations want to have it both ways. We don't want you worried about money. We don't want you worried about stats. We want you to play to win. But then you force me to think about my stats. You force me to think about my production when my contract has a bunch of incentives. If I get a second contract, or if you offer me a second long-term contract, is based on my production on the field. That's a have your cake and eat it too moment that I feel like the organizations are wrong in. Deion says exactly. Hard work and keeping your head down doesn't get you anywhere. You must network, make yourself known. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. Deion, preach, tell them. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know, especially in some of these large companies and corporations. Once you get the job, they are going to teach you how to do what they want you to do anyway. It's good to have background knowledge. It's good to have foundational knowledge. It's good to be able to know the lingo and be able to understand what people are saying when they're talking about certain things. But at the end of the day, you still got to go through training. They're going to teach you how to do the job the way they want you to do the job. So it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. How do you network yourself? How do you put yourself in the right rooms, in front of the right people? How do you present yourself? So always remember that. Network, make yourself known, eye contact, shake hands, be personable, have personality. Don't be afraid to show your personality and who you are. That's what drives connections with people. The advent of social media has gotten us away from that human interaction and making connection with people. That's why I love the shout out to John Chapman. Shout out to the whole team, my brother Breezy, um, the 49er Rush Roach. I love those events because it takes us off the live stream. It takes us off Twitter, and it brings us together to build that community and build that connection. And for that, I love you guys. Listen, appreciate everybody who tuned in. Appreciate everybody who will tune in. Again, drop in the comments some of your favorite throwback or alternate jerseys. Let me know some of the things that you are looking forward to seeing with the jersey combinations this season. And next week, around the same time, we're going to be diving into training camp. By this time next week, all teams, veterans included, should have reported. So we're going to look at what teams are starting their journey towards the Super Bowl. What are some key position battles throughout the league at different positions that we need to keep our eye on? Who's looking to come snatch a starting job? We're going to dive into all of that next week. Again, love and appreciate you guys. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.